You can use crystallized honey to make creamed honey. Now, if your honey has crystallized, don't worry, it hasn't gone bad. It's actually a great sign that you've got pure, raw, and unfiltered honey. Crystallization is just the natural process of the sugars in the honey binding together to form tiny crystals. It's still honey, it's just in a different texture. So you can eat crystallized honey on its own. For me, it doesn't taste any different from liquid honey, but my favorite way to enjoy it is on bread, especially if it's toasted. This is my Toastalator from the 40s, and it makes the perfect toast. Another delicious way to use crystallized honey is by making creamed honey. Now, there are several ways to make it, and many beekeepers have their preferred method. Some recipes can take hours to make, and some can even take weeks. So the way I make it usually takes me about 20 to 45 minutes. It just depends on the size of the batch. So for this recipe, you'll need two ingredients, regular liquid honey and crystallized honey. I use a 1:1 ratio, 1 part liquid honey to 1 part crystallized honey. Today I'm doing a small batch. I'll use a cup of my spring honey, which has already crystallized, and a cup of my autumn honey that's still in its liquid form. So to start, I'll use my mixer to mix them together. First, I'll add my liquid honey to the bowl. It should pour out easily. For the crystallized honey, you might need to use a spoon to scoop it out. Just want to make sure you get a full cup into the bowl. Next, I'll mix them until I get that creamy texture. Sometimes it only takes 3 to 5 minutes. Now, if you plan to share and eat it right away, you can stop here. This creamy texture should hold for about a day or two. But after that, it may start to separate and turn back into its liquid form. But if you want to store it long term and keep that creamy texture without separating, you'll need to mix it for a bit longer. I usually mix mine for about 15 minutes, let it rest for 10 minutes, and then mix it again for another 15 minutes. You can also add some spices for some extra flavor. I like adding some cinnamon and vanilla. So after mixing it for about 40 minutes, it should be ready and it'll look like this. It should be super creamy. But if it's still too runny, you can add a bit more crystallized honey and mix it a little longer until you get that creamy texture you want. Once it's ready, grab a jar and store it. Creamed honey can be kept at room temperature or in the fridge. Either way, it'll maintain its creamy texture for a long time. But if it's stored in a warm place, it might start to separate. Since it's still winter here and I've got my wood stove going, which keeps my kitchen pretty toasty, I'm going to store this batch in the fridge. Oh, and just like regular honey, if it's tightly sealed and stored properly, creamed honey can last forever.